Lords, I've added my name to 2 amendments in this.
Please hear from those noble lords who have tabled and signed amendments before the rest of us speak. I apologise if the noble lady is a signatory, but I didn't think she was.
I have my name on a number of amendments. And
yes.
Thank you. I didn't know those rules applied.
No.
Anyway, they don't. I have added my name to a number of amendments in this group in the name of the noble Lord, Lord Carter of Hazelmere. But in general, I'm glad to support many of the amendments on palliative care in this group. We are being asked to accept that assisted dying is a medical intervention, something I'm not entirely happy with, albeit an irreversible, life-ending medical intervention, but this is what the bill asks us to do. So it seems obvious to me then that there's a guaranteed input from the best placed medical experts in end-of-life care, i.e. palliative care specialists, because that, it seems to me, is essential, therefore, for informed consent for the patients. And I actually imagine and hope that the noble and learned Lord Faulkner is very sensitive to the importance of palliative care. I know that he's in that much-cited Demos Commission, which I won't bother quoting again. He says that. I'm hoping that the noble and learned Lord hasn't changed his mind. But I think the noble Lord Carter made a very important point earlier when he urged the sponsor of the bill, and I would continue to do this, that one of the reasons why there's so many amendments and we've all been chastised and finger pointed at and tutted at, I kept my patience last night, although my blood pressure did go up. But nonetheless, I genuinely think that the number of amendments could be really slimmed down by the sponsor of the bill. If the sponsor of the bill were to go through, for example, all of the amendments on palliative care and say to us, I accept the principle of this, and I'll come back with my own amendment or what have you, because then we wouldn't have this. I mean, we're not an organised political grouping. People put in amendments in good faith, add their name to things, which is what I've done, and then speak in good faith. You're not trying to repeat things for the purposes of delaying the bill, but because we think it matters and it's important, and that's what we're doing here. So I would therefore urge, in relation to this group and the concept of these 10 important themes, I think having an assurance that real choice is offered to a patient with a terminal illness and that they're given the option of palliative care assessment and hopefully then possibly palliative care would really reassure or be a safeguard. It's a key theme and so on. Now, one of the reasons I say that is I know that in the bill GPs can mention palliative care to a patient, but I, you know, I'm a great fan of GPs as kind of fantastic generalists and doing a good job, but very often they don't know all of the and haven't got the expertise that a palliative care specialist would have in terms of how precisely medical intervention can improve a patient's condition and indeed improve or change their will to live. And I do think it's important for us to note as a House that research has shown that those who wish to hasten their own death often change their minds when they receive more information. And palliative care can mean that people who want to die then want to live. And I think that is important if we're going to have choice and talk about choice, because it's possible you might want to die. You're determined you want to die in assisted death terms, having had your terminal illness. But why is it that you want to die? I mean, actually, that's a motivation discussion in another group. But one of the things that I think happens is that many people are frightened. They're fearful. And one of the things they're fearful of are pain and terrible symptoms, often, by the way, graphically described by supporters of this bill. And I think that they can scare people. And it's this idea that your pain and your symptoms cannot be controlled. And when I talk to supporters of this bill, some of my friends, colleagues, members of the public and so on, they are completely compassionate, by the way, in talking about this bill will help people who are suffering, having intolerable suffering or excruciating pain. And none of us want to wish that on anyone, or indeed on ourselves. It's a frightening prospect. But actually, often that is a fear and a dread that the right kind of care will not be realised. Patients are understandably frightened of being in that kind of pain, and they need to know that. I think this quote from Toby Porter, the CEO of Hospice UK, sums up the way I feel about this. He says, "An outcome in which someone chose an assisted death because of a real or imagined fear that they could not get pain relief or other symptom alleviation, or because their family would not get support through their illness, would clearly be a moral and practical disgrace to any country." And I think that's absolutely right. Now, I've talked to, we all know family, friends and so on, people who have died, had terminal illnesses, or friends or family, and people will say, morphine is simply not enough to control the pain. And that's the kind of thing that I say, or that I think, because I know nothing about medicine. So it's a great relief to discover that actually, if you read what the palliative medicine resident doctors say, they say morphine is the tip of the iceberg for pain management. There are countless other options available, but to know this requires training and experience, which I haven't got, and which, when you're having a chat in the pub with mates, or indeed when I've been in hospital pumping in the morphine, you kind of think, it's good to know somebody somewhere has got the experience, and that's the palliative care specialist that every terminally ill patient should at least be offered the option to go to see. So I really believe this is a modest but meaningful addition to the bill, and I hope the noble and learned Lord, in the spirit of listening and accommodating and compromise that we heard last night, will make changes to the bill accordingly. I do think also there is a question to the government and the minister here, though, because I do think it was, and Baroness Smith of Newham explained this very well, but I think it was a shocking revelation in relation to the noble Lord Stevens' point yesterday, that the minister responsible for palliative care said that the government wouldn't publish their modern framework until after the bill had been passed through Parliament. And Lord Stevenson...
With respect, he did not say that. What Lord Stevens says was it wouldn't be done in effect. The implication being that the government's... don't get me wrong, I don't disagree with what you're saying. The implication being the government's given a date, and that date is beyond when this is expected to be law. The minister did not say we're waiting till after the bill, because the crucial words in Lord Stevens were in commas, in effect. So it's very careful what he said.
I had thought I was implying that. I wasn't trying to imply some conspiratorial holding back. It's just that the noble Lord Stevens, this was a bit I was going to quote, said, "This is a dangerous reversal of the timetable we require." And that's the point that I was really getting to. And I think that is shocking, not because I think anyone's malignly behaving in this way, but because I think the government, therefore, needs to commit to bringing forward that report so that it's available before we have report stage. And that's and I really would urge the minister to reassure us that that's the case. I also just wanted to finish off by saying that the noble lady Baroness Brown of Silverton, whose speech I thought was excellent at explaining that for all of the importance of palliative care and hospices and so on, not everyone has equal access to them, and this is well documented. And so one of the chilling aspects of this is I want to see that framework, because one of the chilling aspects of this bill for me is that for those of us who campaign to raise money for hospices, who are desperately keen that palliative care is well-resourced, to hear, as we heard earlier today, by the noble and learned Lord Carlisle, who stated boldly, perfectly reasonably, whichever choice you have, whichever choice we had in the previous group, is going to cost a lot of money. I do think, oh, spend the money out somewhere else.